My name is Maya Hart. I'm 32. And this morning I stood in my parents' San Diego kitchen with a champagne-colored envelope sweating in my hand. The kind of fancy cardstock that's supposed to mean family and celebration. I'm so excited for the wedding tomorrow, I said. Bright. Effortless. The way a good daughter is supposed to sound. My mother's spoon hit her mug like a bell. Sharp. Off-key. Maya, she said without looking at me. It was last week. Something in my chest buckled. I stared at the invitation's elegant script, the loops and flourishes suddenly obscene. Tomorrow, printed in ink that didn't care about me. I felt the floor tilt, like the house had shifted on its foundation, exposing every crack we never repaired. What do you mean? The words scraped out, smaller than my voice. She didn't meet my eyes. We sent the wrong date. A lie delivered like a weather report. Behind her, my father folded the newspaper very carefully, as if precision could hide complicity. I heard my sister Riley somewhere in the house. Laughter. A door. The murmuring hush of conspirators. I understood then. They'd planned the erasure, not an accident, a decision. I didn't cry. That would have given them a story to tell about me later. About drama and sensitivity and how I make everything about myself. Instead, I felt a clean, surgical anger rise, a blade forged over years of being their safety net. The late-night call when Riley's first big client bailed, and she was $10,000 underwater. I wired the money with a note. You'll get through this. She never said thank you. The summer the roof leaked and the foundation cracked, and the estimate made my parents' voices tremble. 30,000 I peeled from my savings. Years of project manager overtime condensed into a check and a shaky hug from my father that smelled like relief and avoidance. And the secret I carried alone. The beach house in La Jolla, they were about to lose. The one I bought outright with $200,000 because I couldn't bear to watch them drown. The deed has my name. They called it our place anyway, as if language could overwrite law. It's strange what betrayal does to time. You're in a kitchen, and also you're in every room you were ever dismissed in. I remembered the Christmases I wasn't invited to. You're always busy, sweetie. And the Thanksgiving when I drove 3 hours to a locked front door and a text that said, "We're at the neighbors." No invitation, no address. I pictured my mother's practiced social smile, my father's careful silences, and my sister's talent for making her need look like my responsibility. Weaponized helplessness, and I remembered how easy I made it for them, how efficiently I solved things, how clean my money made their messes. That afternoon, the only person I called was my cousin, Cassie Lane, a journalist who never lets truth sit quietly in a corner. They planned it, she said, voice low and furious after I spilled everything. Riley told people you'd overshadow her day, the job, the confidence. Your mom backed her. They sent the wrong date to keep you away. The words cut and cauterized at the same time. Rage had an edge now, a name, not grief, resolve. I stared out the window of my gas lamp quarter condo at a city I'd built a life in without them. The skyline looked like a row of unsheathed knives. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house with my hands locked on the wheel and my mouth set in the kind of line no one had ever learned to respect. When my mother opened the door, she blinked like I was an unexpected bill. My father hovered, coffee cooling in his hand. Riley lounged on the couch with her phone like a spectator at a game she'd rigged. "Why did you lie?" I asked. Voice level. A scalpel. Silence spread across the room like frost. Riley's eyes flashed. "Because you always take the spotlight," she said, bright with grievance. It was my day. My laugh came out small and joyless. "I paid for your days," I said, not loudly, just honestly. My mother stepped forward, jaw tight. "You're very independent, Maya. It makes people feel small, as if the size of my life were an insult, as if competence were cruelty." My father put his cup down with extraordinary care and stared at his hands like they held an answer. I looked at the three of them and understood. They didn't want me. They wanted what I provided. Money, problem-solving, a sturdy back they could stand on while they waved to their neighbors. I left before they could rewrite the scene. In the driveway, I paused long enough to feel the sun on my face and promised myself I would never pay for another apology I didn't receive. I drove downtown, parked, and spread a folder across my desk like a map out of a burning house. The deed to the La Jolla place, bank statements, the joint account I'd opened years ago to help that had become a siphon. I called Cassie back. Then I called Lena Morse, a lawyer with a voice like cool water on a fever. She scanned my documents and looked up with something almost like a smile. "You own the house outright," she said. "They're tenants at best. If you want to assert control, I'll prepare notices today." It was the first time in this entire saga that the ground felt steady. Not revenge. Boundaries. Not cruelty. Consequence. In the glass of my office window, I caught my reflection. Tired? Yes, but not broken. And thought, you will not be erased from your own life. When Lena left my office that afternoon, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was charged. The kind that sits in your bones when something in you shifts from victim to architect. I opened my window, let the noise of downtown San Diego spill in. Horns, footsteps, life, and realized I'd been living behind walls my family built out of guilt. Not anymore. I spent the next few hours combing through every record I'd ignored. Joint accounts, credit transfers, the loan my parents had taken out under my name. My stomach knotted with each line item. It wasn't just financial manipulation, it was entitlement written in numbers. Every transaction said the same thing. "We can take from her. She'll understand." By evening, Cassie called again. "Maya," she said, "you're not going to like this." Her voice had that tightness that meant she was protecting me from impact. "Riley's been hosting clients at the La Jolla house. She's been calling it her property, showing it off to get design work." I froze. The house I bought, the one my parents begged me to let them keep until they were stable, had become her showroom. My name, erased from the narrative yet again. The fury that surged wasn't loud. It was steady, deliberate. "Then it's time she learns who owns it," I said. Cassie exhaled, something like relief bleeding into her words. "About time you made them answer for it." The next morning, Lena returned with papers, legal drafts that would redraw every line my family had blurred. We went over each clause together. I wasn't evicting them, not yet. I was reclaiming control, asserting boundaries that should have existed years ago. "They'll receive official notice within 48 hours, she said, sliding the folder toward me. No more ambiguity. I signed my name, and with each stroke of the pen, a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying began to loosen. I imagined my parents' faces when they'd open the letter. Shock, indignation, denial. They'd call it betrayal, without ever seeing their own reflection in it. That afternoon, I closed the joint bank account and redirected the automatic payments they'd quietly attached to my name. Utilities, insurance, even small transfers that trickled into their accounts every month. My financial advisor, Rob Klein, glanced up from his laptop. "You're essentially funding 3 households," he said. "Not anymore," I replied. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing else. Just clicked through the screens until every tether between us was cut. By the time I walked out of his office, the sun was dipping low, painting the glass towers in gold. The city looked alive, clean, unsympathetic, and for once, I fit right into it. That night, my phone lit up with a text from Riley. "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" 3 words that had lost all meaning. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, remembering her smirk in that living room when I asked why she lied. "You always steal the spotlight." Now she wanted to talk, because the ground beneath her was shifting. I turned the phone face down and poured a drink instead. A woman can only be a lifeline for so long before she learns how to swim alone. 2 days later, Lena confirmed the documents were delivered. My parents didn't respond. Riley did. A furious voicemail that started with denial and ended with accusation. "You're punishing Mom and Dad for my mistake." I deleted it halfway through. Accountability always sounds like punishment to the guilty. Cassie called not long after. "They'll try to spin it," she warned. "They already are. People are saying you've cut them off, that you've forgotten where you came from." I laughed, bitter but amused. They're just upset the bank closed, I said. Let them talk. I'm done financing the illusion. For the first time in years, my condo felt like mine, not a temporary pit stop before another rescue mission. I cooked dinner for myself, turned off my phone, watched the city lights blink like small promises of something better. I thought about every version of me my family had needed. The responsible one, the fixer, the one who makes it right. I'd spent a lifetime proving my worth through sacrifice. Now I wanted to see who I was without their emergencies. The next week, Rob finalized the transfers. Every loan, every shared asset moved entirely into their names. My parents were officially responsible for their debts. The La Jolla property was legally protected, its rental income redirected to me. Lena smiled when she delivered the final set of documents. You've insulated yourself completely, she said. They can't touch your accounts or your credit. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't vengeance. It was justice with paperwork. That evening, another message from Riley appeared. Please, don't do this to us. Us. The same collective she used to exclude me. I didn't reply. Instead, I wrote her name on a piece of paper, folded it once, and dropped it into the trash. It wasn't symbolic. It was practical. Some relationships belong exactly where they end, disposed of quietly, without ceremony. I slept soundly that night for the first time in months, and in the quiet before dawn, I realized something simple but profound. Power doesn't come from payback. It comes from permission, granting yourself the right to stop bleeding for people who keep opening your wounds. 3 weeks passed before the ripples began to hit. I was sipping my morning coffee when Cassie called, her voice carrying that familiar mix of sympathy and restrained anger. Maya, she said, your sister's in trouble. She lost a $50,000 design contract. The client backed out after she overpromised on that La Jolla property. Now she and Scott are struggling to cover rent. I leaned back in my chair, the sunlight filtering through the blinds, cutting stripes across the hardwood. There it was. Consequence. Slow and deliberate. They'll manage, I said, though the words tasted like steel. Cassie hesitated. Your mom's been calling around, asking people for help. It's ugly. I didn't ask for details. I'd spent enough years fixing ugly. Later that afternoon, a name flashed across my phone. Scott Harper, my brother-in-law, the man who'd toasted at that wedding I wasn't invited to, smiling beside my sister like they'd built their happiness on something other than borrowed money. I considered letting it ring out, but curiosity won. Maya, he started, his tone already deflated. I need to say I'm sorry. I didn't know Riley planned to keep you out of the wedding. I thought you just couldn't make it. His voice cracked a little, and for a second I heard sincerity under the shame. But sincerity doesn't rewrite history. You didn't ask, I said. You saw the lie and decided it was easier to believe it. He sighed. You're right. I should have questioned it. I didn't comfort him. I didn't absolve him. I just said, take care of your wife, and hung up. That night, as the city pulsed beyond my window, I opened my laptop to an email from my mother. The subject line, please, Maya. I hovered over it, knowing the contents before even clicking. Please laced with manipulation. Regret softened by self-pity. I didn't need to read it. I deleted it. Family doesn't get to betray you, then beg for access to your peace. My phone buzzed again. A message from Cassie. They're telling people you abandoned them, that you only care about your career. I laughed. A short, dry sound. Of course they are. I texted back. They've lost control of the narrative. Still, the words clung like smoke. Abandoned. Selfish. Career-obsessed. The kind of language that weaponizes a woman's success. For years, they'd relied on my stability. Now that I'd reclaimed it, they called it cruelty. I walked to the balcony and let the night air hit my face, grounding myself in the truth. People who benefit from your silence will always call your boundaries betrayal. Days turned into weeks. My sister's business continued to crumble. Her name stopped showing up in the glossy local design magazines. Mom and Dad's social circle, the neighbors who once filled their house with laughter and wine, drifted away, whispers replacing invitations. Cassie called again. They're feeling the fallout, she said. The community's starting to ask questions. I imagined my parents' polite smiles cracking under scrutiny, the way people would exchange glances at the grocery store, the murmurs following them home. For a long time, I would have felt pity. Not now. Actions demand payment, and they'd written checks their morality couldn't cash. One afternoon, I found myself revisiting old photos, birthdays, graduations, the moments when I still believed love meant endurance. My sister in her cap and gown, my parents smiling wide because I'd footed the tuition bill. It wasn't nostalgia, it was a postmortem. I saw it all clearly now. The dynamic had never been family. It had been dependency disguised as affection. They'd needed my resources, not my presence. When I stopped giving, their version of love evaporated. A few days later, Lena called. "Everything's holding steady," she said. "Their names are on every debt now. No legal pushback. You're in the clear." I thanked her. Her voice softened. "How are you holding up?" That question lingered longer than it should have. Because the truth is, even justice hurts. It's not triumph that follows betrayal. It's grief, reshaped into strength. "I'm free," I said finally. But freedom is heavier than I expected. That night, I didn't cry for what I'd lost. I mourned the illusion I'd kept alive for so long. I thought of that little girl version of me who believed her family would always choose her. She deserved better. Maybe this was me giving it to her. Finally, I poured another glass of wine and toasted quietly to her courage. A week later, another message came from Riley. "Let's talk. We can fix this." I stared at it for a long time before replying with just one word. No. No explanations. No softness. Just the boundary she'd never believed I could hold. As I set the phone down, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not joy, not revenge, but peace. Sharp and clean. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for their apology or their acceptance. I didn't need either. I was the author of this ending, and that was enough. A month later, it happened. The confrontation I knew was coming. I was midway through a project meeting when my security lead, Paul Adams, called from the lobby. "Maya," he said cautiously, "your family is here. They're insisting on seeing you." The words hit like a slow echo. My pulse stayed steady, but my hands went cold. "Keep them downstairs," I said, gathering my things. "I'll come down." The elevator ride felt endless. The kind where you hear your own heartbeat louder than the hum of machinery. When the doors opened, the lobby was heavy with tension. My parents stood near the reception desk. My mother's eyes rimmed red, my father looking small in a way I'd never seen. And beside them, Cassie. Her expression was tight, conflicted. "Maya," my mother began, her voice trembling. "We're sorry. We need to talk." I crossed my arms, keeping my voice calm. "About what?" "The lies. The money. The part where you erased me." My father stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Let's not do this here," he said. "We didn't mean to hurt you." The words scraped like sandpaper. Too familiar. Too late. Cassie spoke then, glancing between us. "They asked me to come," she said quietly. "I thought maybe you'd listen if I was here." I trusted Cassie, but that didn't mean I'd cave. "Listening doesn't mean forgiving," I said. Then, as if summoned by guilt itself, Riley appeared behind them. My breath caught. Her face was thinner, drawn tight, the perfect mask cracking at the edges. "Maya," she said, almost whispering. "Please. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left you out." I panicked. She took a hesitant step forward, but I didn't move. "You didn't panic," I said, each word slow, deliberate. "You planned." She flinched, tears gathering, and for a flicker of a moment, I saw the girl I'd once protected, scared, ashamed, lost. But empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. And I'd already burned enough years on that altar. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and opened the video I'd received months ago. One Riley had sent to a mutual acquaintance, bragging about her perfect wedding day. I hit play. Her laughter filled the air, brittle and cruel. Good thing Maya's not here to steal my spotlight. The silence that followed was suffocating. Cassie's hand flew to her mouth. My mother looked away. My father just stared at the floor. The truth, undeniable and documented. You didn't just forget me, I said softly. You mocked me. My mother tried to speak, but I cut her off. You took my money, my time, my trust. And when I had nothing left to give, you rewrote the story to make me the villain. Now you want forgiveness because the world stopped believing your version. My voice didn't shake, though my chest ached. My father muttered, "We can fix this," like a broken record. I turned to him. "No, Dad, you can live with it." Then came the final blow. My mother's plea. "At least let us stay in the beach house for a while," she said. "We have nowhere else to go." I blinked, disbelieving. "The house you rented out behind my back. The one you used to fund vacations." "That house?" She nodded, shame coloring her face. I looked to Cassie, who shook her head, disgusted. "You're still asking for more after everything," Cassie said, her voice sharp. "You betrayed her, and you're standing here begging." My mother's tears fell freely now. "We're your family," she whispered. I met her eyes. "Family doesn't steal from you. Family doesn't lie to you. Family doesn't humiliate you and then ask for shelter when the walls cave in." I turned to Paul, who stood nearby, uncomfortable but waiting for direction. "Please escort them out," I said quietly. My mother reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "I meant it when I said I'm done being your fallback." They left slowly, my mother sobbing into my father's shoulder, Riley silent and pale, Cassie staying behind. When the doors closed, Cassie turned to me, her eyes shining. "You did the right thing," she said. "That video, they can't deny it anymore." I nodded, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like release, the kind that hurts before it heals. Back in my office, I looked out over the city I'd built my life in. Every skyscraper, every light, was a monument to survival. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Riley. "Please don't shut us out." I turned it face down on my desk, exhaling slowly. They'd tried to define me by their need, by their lies, by their dependence. But standing there, surrounded by the quiet hum of my own success, I realized something profound. They'd never known me at all. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of the La Jolla house. The ocean spread wide and endless before me. The same house they'd used, lied about, and taken for granted. The air smelled of salt and freedom. My career had soared since then. A promotion, new clients, a peace I hadn't known was possible. Cassie and Lena had become my chosen family, steady, honest, loyal. When another invitation arrived, my parents' anniversary celebration, I smiled faintly and sent a modest gift instead. A token, not an olive branch. They could celebrate the facade they'd built. I had no need to join. Cassie later told me they'd moved into a small apartment, that Riley's business had folded completely, that the same neighbors who'd once praised them now avoided eye contact. Actions always echo, and theirs had finally caught up. As I watched the waves crash against the rocks, I whispered a truth that had taken years to learn. Your worth isn't what others take, it's what you choose to keep. I'd kept my dignity, my independence, my peace. I had lost a family, yes, but I'd gained myself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been betrayed, know this. You can rise, rebuild, and reclaim your light. Please subscribe to Vengeance Within for more stories of strength, truth, and transformation.